are some chord shapes that I believe every guitarist should know. Many of you probably already know first position chord shapes like C, A minor, E, and so on and so forth. Chords that generally are played in this area of the neck. They involve open strings as well as fretted notes. Like an E major chord involves an open E string, second fret, first fret, open, open. In order to sort of unlock the rest of the fretboard and wrap our heads around the different chord possibilities that exists, that's actually a perfect place to start. Most of what we play on the neck, at least in terms of chord shapes, playing in standard guitar tuning, stems from 5 chord shapes. Those shapes are the C form, the A form, the G form, the E form, and the D form. This is a system you've probably heard of. It's called the caged system, C-A-G-E-D. The idea is that pretty much everything we're going to play out here, scale forms, chord shapes, bar chords, triads, double stops, whatever, you name it, they're going to originate in some way, shape, or form from those original chord shapes here in the first position. Those are, however, the 5 most important chord shapes to know because they unlock everything else. First position chords are extremely important to know. Chords like G, and it's important to know that G can be played like this. It can also be played with the ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the B string, as well as open without it. E and E minor, A and A minor, D and D minor, C, and those are pretty much going to be the first position chords, major and minor, that you're going to play without having to invoke the bar chord shape or the bar chord form. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's get into bar chords. For example, here's how we play a B major chord on the guitar. Okay, we can also play it up here. This form right here, this shape, this originates from the A shape or the A form. So the only way to really play a B chord comfortably in E standard guitar tuning is to bar here, or play some other variation, but those are the 2 most popular. Now the same goes for B minor, which originates from the A minor shape. That's where that C-A-G-E-D, that caged thing kicks in, is we have the A part of that, we just make it an A minor, but then we slide that shape up. It's the same exact thing as if I took a capo, put it on the 2nd fret, and then played A minor. It might be shaped like an A minor. I might be actually playing an A minor shape that I've practiced 100 times, but I am in fact playing a B minor if I am barring the other notes, the open notes, on the 2nd fret. And then to play B minor out here, you invoke the E minor shape. And that moves every note that was in the open position all the way up to the 7th fret. The 2 notes that were in the 2nd fret have moved up to the 9th fret. So it's quite the leap, but again, those are the 2 most common and easiest ways to play B minor and B major on the guitar in standard tuning using the caged system. The A form and the E form bar chords are going to be the most common that you will play typically. However, the E and A form bar chords are not the only bar chord shapes you'll play. You might recognize this little melody. This shape comes from a D shape, but it is actually an E triad. So here we have our D, here we have our A, another D, and an F sharp, which is the major 3rd. But if we just have those 3, we have the 3 essential notes, the root, 3rd, and 5th, to make a triad. And so that's a D triad, that's a D sharp triad, that would be an E triad. To make it an actual bar chord version of D, we'd have to put our first finger way over here in the 2nd fret, what would be referred to as a D-formed E chord.
Not a deformed E chord.
Which is why we typically would do that. But it all depends on what you're going for and depends on what you're playing. Another really common thing to do that I see beginners and intermediate guitar players do, and even some advanced, to come up with some kind of creative chord shapes, is to start with the first position chord shape, and rather than barring it, just slide the actual chord shape itself out somewhere. Here I'm sliding this D form around, but allowing this open D note to sort of drone, which gives us kind of a cool sound. Another really important chord shape to know is the power chord, which is actually derivative of bar chords. Specifically, the power chord shape that is played most often is derived from the E shape and the A shape. But all we're doing is taking root, the lowest root note typically, make it nice and heavy and rock and roll or metal in some instances, lots of instances in fact. We have the open E, and we have the B, which together make a perfect fifth. We have the root note and the fifth of the root, giving us a perfect fifth, also known as a power chord. Now we could add one more note here, because this note is the octave of the root, which just gives it a little bit more fuller of a sound, but it is in fact still a power chord. So this would be an E5 or an E power chord. This would be an F5, F sharp 5, G5, G sharp 5, A5, and so on and so forth. And then to do the same thing on the next string, we simply go down a string and we will just ignore the sixth string.
Sixth string.
Typically, in order to do this, you'll have to butt your finger up against that string and just play these three. So this would be an A5 or an A power chord, A sharp 5, B5, C5, C sharp 5, D5, and so on and so forth. There are other power chord shapes that can be played in order to get that root, fifth, and sometimes octave of the root sound that is so popular. Another is this, which stems from D. This would be a D2, but we're gonna leave out this E note and just play these. So this would be a D5, D sharp 5, E5. It just gives us a more high-pitched, I guess, sort of power chord sound. Another really popular way to play a power chord is kind of like a grunge G5. It's a G chord, but we are ignoring, essentially, this major third here, this B note that is played on the second fret of the fifth string. We're sort of leaning this finger out a little more flat to mute the A string, and we are playing this string, the D, the G, this note here, which is another D, and another G. So it's just G, D, G, D, G, D. It's just a G, D chord. Very common in grunge. Then we have the double stops, which I guess you could say those are more derivative of scales. So if we have, for instance, an A minor pentatonic scale, and sort of just play two notes at a time, these are actually fourths. That's the interval. This would be a fifth, this would be a fourth, or you could call it a perfect fourth. If this is perfect fifth, this is perfect fourth, because fifths are neither major nor minor, and fourths neither major nor minor. Because it could go this way, or it could go that way, and then the fourth could go, or it could go to the fifth, or down to the major third, or even down to the minor third. These are what you might refer to as double stops. Fourths, they can be done as thirds. As you may know, in standard tuning, these two strings, open, are fourths. So anywhere we bar just those two is gonna be a fourth. Same with these two strings. Same with these two strings. Until we get to the G and the B string, the relationship of a G to a B is a third. And you can sort of hear that change. It just kind of gets a little more melodic, I guess you could say. And then we go back to the normal fourths. Double stops. Another chord shape that every guitarist should know stems from first position chord shapes. We have what is called the triad. Okay, this shape right here is actually stems from G minor bar chord that is in the A minor form. We've just gone way the heck up here, and all we're doing in terms of guitar tab, it's 10, 12, 12, 11, 10. But all we're doing is playing sort of the high-end essentials, 12, 11, and 10. This G note, this A sharp note, and this D note. To make this a major triad, this is a minor triad. You might call this a G minor triad. To make this a G major triad, or just a G triad, all we'd have to do is put this pinky up, one note here, turn it into a major triad. And last but not least, we have octaves. Not really a chord, but I think it is an essential thing. It's an essential shape and sound that every guitar player should know how to play. And all we have to do to get this octave sound, the most common place to play octaves is going to be on the A string and the G string. And in order to make it project without any noise coming out of the other strings, we want to take our first finger and press down on the 5th string. So I'm playing this D note here on the 5th fret of the A string, and I'm allowing my first finger to butt up against this string right here, skipping over that to this D string, skipping over that one to the G string on the 7th fret, and then what's happening naturally is my first finger is sort of preventing, you can kind of see that, just by laying on the B string and the E string, is naturally muting them. So all of my firepower goes into those two notes, and the other notes are essentially muted. And for me personally, rather than playing with the ring finger, I would typically play something like this with my pinky. You can also play these on the E string and the D string. Same rule applies, just go up a string. Now, if you wanted to go up and play higher octaves, you're gonna have to implement one rule because of what I talked about earlier, the fourths, 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 and then thirds in terms of standard guitar tuning. So we're gonna go down a string from the D position, but if I don't go over one more fret with my pinky or ring finger, I'm gonna use my pinky, it's gonna sound like this, which is kind of nice if you play metal. But that is gonna be a major 7th interval from this G note that I'm playing here. So in order to make it a G octave, I've got to slide that pinky over. So it ends up being over a string and then a whole step and another half step. And then the same rule applies if we want to go up from there, but it can feel a little wonky. I would say that's probably when you want to hit some really high notes, but they don't sound really clean. Or I guess you could get them to sound really clean if you wanted to. For me, I would probably just stick with those and those. So there you have it. Those are some chord shapes that I think every single guitar player should know. Obviously, there are 7ths and major 7ths and diminished chords and 9 chords, and there's
all kinds of wonderful, amazing chords out there.
But those are sort of the essential chord shapes that I think every guitar player should know and implement into their arsenal. If you are looking to deep dive into playing the guitar and getting better today, I have a link to a packet in the description of this video that I think will help you improve immediately. It's loaded down with some great information and it has already helped so many people. Please like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. I'll see you on the next video.